I hope that this is running now. I'll begin with it. Good evening. Let's see. Hold on a second. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We are in India on a beautiful day of June. I, your host Vishal Gautam from the city of Taj Mahal, will share my screen today with a fascinating special guest, Mr. Tafadzwa Banga, who has joined us from Zimbabwe. Today, we are here making history by writing our names in this book of space revolution, by being some of the first ones who have gathered through the initiative called the Global Space Summit, brought to you by the Space Development Nexus and Helium Learning Labs. SDNX Foundation was established in the year 2013 with the purpose of making space accessible to everyone through its initiatives and educational projects in space research and development. And Helium Learning Labs, our organizing partner, is an edtech company that aims to establish a world-class digital space school to fill the gaps between space education and space industry, to train the students of the future space workforce. This year's theme, the role of space education and research in emerging nations, was adopted to put a spotlight on the space activities in emerging nations to empower them further. With the expectation that through this summit, the students and the young space professionals will get audience, and the audience will get guidance in their education and in their career. With all that, I have a huge amount of gratitude and excitement about the opportunity to be here. Just a few housekeeping notes before we go ahead and get started in terms of logistics. We go ahead and get started in terms of logistics. We will have today two segments in this session, each about half an hour long. The first session includes Mr. Tafadzwa sharing his experiences as a space enthusiast in the emerging nations, and the second round will be a fun interview section with him. Meanwhile, all the folks out there can engage with us, and I think one of the most important things here is that we just don't want to be in an informational transit. We would very much like to hear what you have to say and what the things that you can write. So please do not hesitate and put your question in the Q&A box and also the chat box. Now our guest, Mr. Tafadzwa. He's an extraordinary gentleman, an aspiring astrophysicist, a space science enthusiast with a million dreams like all of us. He'll take us on a journey that will help us reach our escape velocity. Tafadzwa is a BE graduate majoring in industrial engineering from the National University of Science and Technology, Zimbabwe. Currently serving as the national point of contact for SGAC, where he leads and participates in several SGAC projects in commercial space, space education, and space exploration. He is the International Development Ambassador for Shepherd's Glow, and he has served as the National Chairperson in Students for the Exploration and Development of Space during his time in the university. Mr. Tafadzwa, the screen is all yours.
Thank you so much, Vishal. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an opportunity, I think, as part of the developing nations to share about our journey in the space sector, most importantly, and show and share with the rest of the world our initiatives that we're currently doing. It's quite an exciting time. I know during this period in time, during the COVID period, there are a lot of challenges. But space has come as a way to restore some of the confidence that we have lacked for a long period in time. But to start with, I'll just share my screen and share my presentation with you all and take you through the journey of the space sector in Zimbabwe and how far we have gone so far. I'm really quite excited about space, and I believe it will definitely have a positive impact within our local community. I'll be sharing my screen now. Maybe you can just confirm if you can see my screen.
Okay, Mr. Tafadzwa.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, works perfect.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Iliam Learning Labs and SDNA Foundation for giving me this opportunity to be part of the Global Space Summit and part of the speakers. It's like Vishal has already said, my name is Tafadzwa Banga, National Point of Contact for Space Generation Advisory Council in Zimbabwe. I'm a fifth and final year student studying industrial manufacturing engineering. And today I will just take this moment to share with you the role of space education and research in Zimbabwe and how the journey has been up to this date. So for Zimbabwe, we are still at our infant stage. We had our national space agency called the Zimbabwe Geospatial and Space Agency, launched in 2018 by His Excellency President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The development of ZINSA gave the opportunity to embark on space education and use the platform to address some important areas in the development of the nation. So we have so many areas that we primarily focus in Zimbabwe for our economic growth, and we would consider that agriculture is quite vital in our communities. So the coming in of space education and the space agency comes in to cater for that area: agriculture, communication, the issue of disease surveillance, mineral exploration, wildlife conservation, and infrastructure management. So from this, you would just appreciate that space, the application of space is quite vast and in so many areas. And if anyone has a question that why space in Zimbabwe, why space in a developing nation, I will be happy to clarify that as we go on. So to date, the space programs that we have in Zimbabwe have been fortunate in part by SGAC for very quite a time period. Since 2013, we had our first national point of contact, Mr. Chuma. By then, he was a student at the National Institute of Science and Technology as well, studying applied physics. And SGAC has done a lot to ensure that it supports students in Zimbabwe in space education programs, and by giving scholarships to attend SGAC and UN supported workshops. It is vital and important that as we embark on this journey, we need to have an understanding of what space is all about, such that we are able to integrate this amazing technology or amazing field in our communities. So SGAC has played a vital important part supporting the initiatives of students to ensure that we are able to access the same opportunities that other professionals across the world are getting in the space sector. Acknowledging that space is quite important and space is quite useful in so many areas. In Zimbabwe, we then managed to create a chapter, a student-led organization called Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, SED Zimbabwe, a chapter which was established in 2018. Starting with 2 chapters at our local institutions, that is the University of Zimbabwe and National University of Science and Technology. Beginning this year, we were fortunate enough to establish another chapter as well at the Chino University of Technology. So all of these initiatives that we do as students just echo what as the government had already initiated with the establishment of ZINSA. And it is our hope that during that period in time, we are able to then learn more as students how best we can be of use to the development of the space sector here in Zimbabwe, and be of use not only to Zimbabwe, but to the Africa space sector as a whole. So in terms of the space education, I understand that this conference it's majoring on the space education of developing nations and the research and the impact that it has in our communities. And we would like to acknowledge that in our institutions, our local institutions, we do have courses that offer space-related programs, but more on the downstream where most of the students engage in surveying, where they use GIS, Geographical Information System platforms. At USAID, I know there's space science, there's also aerospace engineering. So without having an active space industry at the moment, the application of downstream is more dominant in comparison with the upstream, where we talk of technology development in terms of space. Then to bring more understanding of how we can engage as students, acknowledging that there hasn't been much information about space prior, and so many students are now interested in this field. As students, we have then come up with an initiative where we conducted online educational programs to ensure that we get to learn and have an understanding of what space is all about and how it can be used in our community. Our goal is we will not wait for the intervention of other people, but as individuals, we can start small. Then within the way, we are able to understand how best we can apply ourselves. So to ensure that we add into that, we have conducted educational programs during the period of the COVID pandemic. Last year in the month of August, we just noted that so many students were not going to school, and there was need to then have a platform to engage with students, and then have a platform as well to teach them more about space. So what we then did is we created a program as the students and students for the Exploration and Development of Space Zimbabwe chapter. Then during the month of August, we then dedicated a program on each day during the course of the week. So on Mondays, we would find ourselves having space education, where we would invite various speakers locally and internationally. On this slide, I'm just showing you the speakers that we had. We are quite blessed that we have active space enthusiasts in Zimbabwe. Mr. Tatina Manyuchi, a PhD student and a lecturer so with the Chino University of Technology. We have Ruimbo Samanga, our first Zimbabwe space lawyer. Mr. Chuma was our first NPoC. So during the course of the week, on Mondays, we would have our space educations, and on Thursdays, we would also have space education. Then on Tuesdays, we dedicated Tuesdays to space talk, where we can just interact with the professionals in the space industry. Then we get to learn more on what space is all about. On the other platform, we also engaged with external speakers across the whole world. We engaged with the founder and principal of School of Astronaut Leadership Training, just to take us through of what this journey is all about. So essentially, all of these activities that we are embarking on as students, we are taking this platform to ensure that we have the important information that would make us be able to understand this path that we would want to follow, and most importantly, know how best we can integrate the information and use it in our communities. And to make it fun as well, you would find that people in Africa and Zimbabwe per se would have a misconception of saying space is for the geeks or anything, and there is no fun. But we did try to incorporate a program in which we can have fun within the space activities, or the space education activities that we're conducting. And during Fridays, would have a sponsored quiz that would cater the sessions that would have been done during the course of the week. And all of these initiatives were supported by students, just to make sure that at the end of the day, we have an amazing time. And to make sure that we have a deeper understanding, we learn space education is not all about that just theory. We need to then understand best how we apply this knowledge practically. So we also conducted a series of sessions where we engaged professionals who would then dissect this information and help students understand from their various departments, various fields that they are in their different institutions, how best they can then apply this technology. So we managed to engage in a series of CANSET design that we were taken through by Marco, NPoC, National Point of Contact for Angola. He's quite an active space enthusiast in Africa. And through that exercise, it gives students the appreciation of what satellites are all about. We are taught at school about satellites. We have the information that we use satellites for so many things, but it's also important to then have an understanding of how they function. So this exercise assisted us in that, and we did not end there. We managed to then apply this knowledge practically and have an appreciation of how exactly the space technology is applied. So it is also vital and important in space education that we learn by doing. Theory, yes, it's important, but at the end of the day, there is that need for appreciation and understanding of exactly how some of these technologies work. And the biggest thing that we would need to work on as individuals in Zimbabwe or as individuals in Africa is be in a position to integrate this technology and make it useful in our communities. I think I'll continuously repeat that, because at the end of the day, if we are not able to use this technology within the African continent or within our own communities, then its use it doesn't paint a good picture at the end of the day. So on our projects that we have managed to conduct to support the issue of space education in Zimbabwe, we did our first high altitude balloon project, Discover Mission, which was sponsored by students as well, and got the support from the Meteorological Service Department of Zimbabwe and a few colleagues that had the heart to make sure that we see this project through. So the project itself, on the far left, that's the team that was present on the launch date at the MSD headquarters, that is in our capital city, Harare. Then we managed to launch our payload on the 10th of October. That is last year, 10 October. During the launch as well, we then incorporated the theme of breast cancer awareness. We realized that we were in the period of the breast cancer awareness, that is the month of October. So we also incorporated that to the launch itself. So essentially, what we have here is an understanding that we might start small, but at the end of the day, the voices that we echo are much louder. And the first application that we can learn from this is community engagement. We managed to engage with the local community in where we managed to recover our payload. They were quite fascinated to see something falling from the sky. To some, they actually thought it was religiously related or anything. But through the engagement, then managed to explain the purposes of these experiments, the purposes of this project, what we want to achieve. And it was quite an amazing opportunity. Just to share more information, this is what we were looking towards the conduction of the project, from the initial from the start to the end, where as we conduct activities related to space, the importance of education is that we then understand how we should conduct them in a manner that is acceptable to the community. It is not an issue of just launching things in space for we might endanger people, But in our case, having been taught about how to conduct such activities, we reached out to MSD, where they have certified personnel who were able to launch our payload for us, assist us in the filling with the helium gas, which is quite a dangerous gas to just handle without the assistance of professionals. So generally, this was the balloon cycle that the platform that it took as we conducted the experiment. It was quite an experience for us. I think upon the ascent, we were just excited just to monitor how the payload was traveling, and actually seeing it travel about 100 kilometers away from the launch site. Then these are the satellite images of the launch site and recovery site. So because of excitement during the program, it is important that as students embark on space, the other thing that they have to learn is you have to be patient at first, and you have to use precise data. We went first pin location to search for our payload, not noticing that the pin location that we had received was during descent, and it had actually landed on pin location 2. So we spent about 2 days in the bush on pin location 1, just trying to ensure that we recover our payload there. And fortunately enough, on the 3rd day, that's when we managed to recover on pin location 2. So with this platform as well, it becomes easy for us to understand the issue of systems that are able to carry out surveillance, be it the normal monitoring of wildlife, the normal monitoring of our resources, be it the vegetation, water, or anything. You have a more deeper understanding of how these systems work, because this system was still continuing to communicate with us, even if it was quite far away. For our capsule design, we incorporated a few electronic gadgets. Some are not shown that gave us the GPS location, but we just ensured that we partitioned the capsule. So the other main thing that we learned there is that when you are conducting a project, you need to be organized. You need to partition your capsule. You need to know where certain objects are going to be placed before you even place them. That organization will always translate even to bigger projects. In a case where you are even launching a rocket, if you do not partition, maybe during using softwares or simulation platforms, it becomes a challenge for you to have a product or to have a project that is successful. So it's something that we got to learn as well, to ensure that our equipment is safe, our equipment is well secured. And these are some of the ground pictures that we took of the our high altitude Discover mission on ascent. They are quite beautiful pictures. Zimbabwe is quite a beautiful country, and I hope after the pandemic, this presentation will just motivate other people to come and visit as well. Then we also had an onboard camera that we used to just take the view of the Earth as it was in ascent. So we talk of data for mapping. We want to monitor be it the vegetation. There's a lot of monitoring that is talked about. So, and without having the understanding and appreciation of how this works and how this actually looks like, one wouldn't understand. But this is these are two pictures that that were taken from the onboard camera upon their ascent, and it then helps individuals, specifically in our local community, to then understand what we then mean when we say I would want to use satellite technology to map, to see how deforestation is rapidly affecting our areas, to see be it the availability of water in certain regions, specifically monitoring on the sources of water that we have. Um, so just to mesmerize a lot of our viewers, we will just share a small clip that our onboard camera took as it was ascending. I think by far, to me, this is the best view I have had so far of Earth. And I know the other folks in the developed nations are talking of space tourism and everything, but we might be looking forward to engaging in cheaper ways of space tourism that is readily available and readily accessible to the Zimbabwean community. And as you can see, I'm sure you can just appreciate that our land is beautiful, and we are quite blessed. So the other important thing that we appreciate from conducting projects, and particularly in terms of space education, we want to make this process an engagement process where it's not only one-sided, but we are then in a platform where we can engage with our community, the global community, the local community. Through this project, it wasn't then dedicated to students per se, but we did this for our national, the program being recognized on the World Space Week website, acknowledging the initiatives that as a nation we are taking to do. And it doesn't stop there from this activity. I know Sri Lanka then reached out, students from Sri Lanka, asking as well how we could assist each other on their own first high altitude balloon launch, which was quite a success as well. So that's what we look forward to when we engage in projects, in programs. It is not for our own good or our own development, but we should understand that at the end of the day, there are so many people who will be impacted with these exercises, and who would benefit. So one would then really ask exactly how best can we integrate space in Zimbabwe? How best can we integrate space in Africa? My hope and my approach with space is we should try in as much as we can to bring space closer to home, and address some of the issues that we encounter in our day-to-day lives. We have been having cases of floods in Zimbabwe for the past 5 years, which has affected so many lives. There was cyclone Idai, there was storm Eloise. Then you would also see that the challenges that arise from these effects, they affect many livelihoods. They problems. So we might not start at the upstream end, but we might have an understanding of the downstream and application of space, where there are free and readily available resources that we can use as individuals, like the Zoom Earth platform, where satellites are being used to monitor these activities, where there are tropical cyclones or storms that arise. And with such information, we are then able to have a disaster management program that can warn people before some of these events occur. On this slide, we managed to share on the Save Zimbabwe page when Storm Eloise was coming towards Zimbabwe, and we just shared with the rest of the community that severe weather was to be expected. It's important to share this information, because at times we do not know what happens. At times people would want to think in a way where if that information is reliable or not. But I would also just want us at times to understand that if it is true, you might find yourself in danger, and if it's not, you are safe. So at the end of the day, it's good at times to just make use of this information that we get from satellites. And on the day, on the 19th of January this year, there was a substantial amount of rainfall that we received in Zimbabwe. This is my hometown in Beru, where there were a lot of floods. And with the issue of floods now, you would see that it disrupts the normal life of so many people. It introduces a lot of diseases and the like. But this is information that is readily available that we can then take and use from space. It's not limited to disaster management per se, but the application is quite vast. We talk of precision agriculture. We talk of different resource management platforms. So you would find that using this information specifically on the downstream end, it can then assist us as a nation to tap into these freely available resources and freely available information, and improve our communities. The other applications that we have managed to use here in Zimbabwe, specifically on disease surveillance, my co-NPoC, Kumbirai, a student at the at Midland State University, has been also using GIS just to monitor the spread of COVID and see the areas that are prevalent to the high cases of COVID. And it has also been used as a platform to give an awareness to people on vaccination centers, just to make sure that people are able to get vaccinated. So these are some of the areas that that have been employed to make sure that we benefit from space education, to make sure that we benefit from space technology. And of importance, I would reiterate on that, is being in a position to integrate space technology so that it can be used by the general public, and the general public can have an understanding. This slide shows the normal community of my rural home, and my hope at the end of the day through space is to make sure that my grandmother in the village would be able to benefit from this technology. We are not only primarily focusing on the urban areas, but space. When people talk of space, when treats are being established, they have a wording that says for the betterment of the human society. So betterment of human society is not segregated or is not mainly focused to the urban areas, but to everyone. In particularly in Africa, I believe we can be in a position, if we make use of the talent that we have, that is the students that we currently have, we can make use of such talent to ensure that we impact knowledge. We then use that knowledge to have a positive impact in our community, to use space technology to safeguard the future generation of space enthusiasts. So in as far as the journey of space is concerned, in Zimbabwe. This is how far we have gone. But like I said, we are still in our initial stage, and we believe a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and this is the single step that we are taking. I know other nations have went through far worse challenges than we are going through, but they did manage to establish their national space agencies. Their space sector is quite thriving, and we are on the same platform to ensure that we achieve that as well. We are not limited. That is one thing that we would like to acknowledge. And having brilliant minds in Zimbabwe, it is definite that in the years to come, we'll definitely have a vibrant space sector, a vibrant ecosystem that is supported by the use of space technology. And we hope that through that platform, we can be able to develop our communities. We can be able to integrate this technology, preserving our culture as well. It's not a way of substituting being a Zimbabwean or being African, but it's just a way to add and amplify to what we already have in our communities. Uh, uh, I would just like to end my presentation by saying during the darkest times, a small glimpse of light shines the brightest. It might be a difficult time for most of us during this period in time. In some communities in Africa, they were struggling prior COVID, and COVID hasn't made things easier. But we hope and we understand that at the end of the tunnel there is light, and the smallest initiatives that we can do today can be of importance tomorrow. So we will continue trying and we will continue thriving to ensure that we achieve our goal, to ensure that we improve our livelihood, and to ensure that we implement the sustainable development goals that were introduced by the United Nations to ensure that we improve our lives here in Africa and in Zimbabwe in particular. I would just want to thank you, and I think I will just stop sharing my presentation now.
Okay, that was great. Thank you, Mr. Tafadzwa. Thank you for the insights of the recent developments in the space department of your country, and especially thank you for sharing the projects that you have taken in throughout the courses and throughout the development phase of your country. Especially talking about
Thank you so much, Vishal.
Thank you, thank you. Especially talking about the projects, which was the balloon flight. It literally packed an incredible image of your beautiful country and your beautiful area, Zimbabwe. And I think that by collaborating just like this, we are sure that our countries will progress in the upcoming days, and we as a community will grow further and keep inspiring people to progress towards the future. Before going any further, I would like to share something with you. I was here to deliver an incredibly important secret this evening. A secret that I thought that I was the only one in the world that knew. But unfortunately, our esteemed speaker prior to me has already stolen my thunder. I was here to deliver the secret that the space sector is growing, but it looks like everybody knows that. So, unfortunately, I will have to think of a new way to tell you. And I could begin by inventing another statistic on the growth of the space community. You've heard about 5 point something, you've heard about 9 point something. So I will use an incredibly simple way of describing the growth of space sector in emerging nations. And I will say that there is a humongous amount of growth still to come. Coming back to Mr. Tafadzwa's analogy that he's shared with us, that in the darkest of the time, you get a glimpse of light. It is definitely motivating to hear something. And I do believe that amongst the crisis, the time of a crisis, you find opportunities too during that. And taking that analogy, that Mr. Tafadzwa opened to, that space development is how space development is proceeding, I would like to proceed with it. And I would say, if this was a space race, we are still in the initial phase of organizing the space race event. And as far as the space sector is concerned, if we were in an interstellar space travel mission with 50 light years to cover, then we are still in the first several thousand miles. And the bottom line is that there is a lot more growth coming in the space sector. So what does that mean and how will that evolve? And this is where you get into some really weird stuff in terms of how this is going to evolve. Therefore, to answer that question, how this will evolve, let us move to another section or another part of this session in which I am going to ask you, Mr. Tafadzwa, a few questions which are mostly based on curious minds and people from curious nations or emerging nations will have to ask. This will take about 20 minutes. Before we jump right into the questions, why not gain a little bit of your presence personally? All right. I want to know, sir, that what was it everywhere that you could find people launching balloons, installing a camera, and aiming a vision like doing a project that will show the image of the world?
Vishal, can you come again?
So my question to you is, Mr. Tafadzwa, that was it normal to you? Was it everywhere you were seeing that people are launching balloons, having installed cameras installed in them? Was it normal to you, or was it a normal insight that people do that back then?
So for us, like I mentioned, this was quite an experience, a new experience for us. Particularly that it's in Zimbabwe, it's the first time we have done that. But through engaging with the outside community, it's not something that I knew. I think 3 years back that you'd be able to be in a position as an individual to launch something. You have a camera taking views of the earth using such means apart from the rockets and the like. So this was something that was quite new for us, and it being new made it quite interesting, and the need for us to actually conduct such an activity and have the feel and understanding of how it works.
So if it was so new to you, what actually motivated you to do something like this or to pursue space in the first place?
Also, the motivation behind this project, we say, is I've been working with a few colleagues, and it was really difficult to engage with local community in terms of space. It's quite difficult to explain to someone how important something is when they cannot see the results. So us taking this initiative, it gave us the opportunity to then have something at hand, and be able to approach and say to someone, this is why we want to do space, this is how we conduct space, this is where we start from. And as an individual, I'm a practical person. I love to let my work speak for me. So this project gave us that platform, and it also gave us the opportunity to engage with our government as well through the support of the Meteorological Service Department. We also needed that platform that the government would acknowledge and see that students really want to be part of this space sector, and really want to add to the initiative that they introduced themselves. So I think that is the major important push factor for the project. They say, in as far as space is concerned, I've been someone who has always been curious. Curiosity. I'm sure there was a Mars rover called Curiosity. that would probably be named after me. But anyways, it's something that I was just fascinated about, just to learn more exactly how the universe works, how best we can tap into this amazing technology, and yeah, basically that's it.
That was wonderful to dig a little deeper into your personal side. I would want to go. I would want to take you to a fun part, but the last answer that we just spoke developed to two more questions that I have in my mind. First is that you said about government, how government is inspiring people in your country to pursue space science. What do you think? What policies government can include to enhance this more?
So as we embark,
I think there is some connection issue. We will wait for a minute. I think he will be back soon. All right. I think there is some connection issue, Mr. Tafadzwa. Meanwhile, all of you people who are watching, just pitch in your comments. I am reading your comments right now, and I will ask him the questions that you ask, so that more inspiration that we can extract the maximum amount of inspiration and motivation out of that person. I'm hoping to see your comments and your questions. Thank you. Okay, he's back again. Welcome back, Mr. Tafadzwa. Till the time he comes back, maybe I should ask a few questions from the audience only, because till the time he comes back, anyway. Maybe I should ask a few questions from the audience, because they are equally knowledgeable as anyway. Other people are. I guess he's back, so the question will be later, audience. You meanwhile be there, stay put. Welcome back, Mr. Tavatsva.
Yeah, so for that, that's Africa fast connectivity is quite a challenge.
I certainly believe that the government, instead of including policies, first set up a better internet connection everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the first step to go in space.
That's true. I think that's the most important into space. Just make sure we rectify some of these issues.
Yes. I think we will take this question later on. Why not? Let's play a quick rapid fire round. All right. I know that you are a practical person, but I think a little rapid fire round hurts nobody, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to answer me quickly, and there is no more. There is no thinking time. The question to you is: describe yourself in 3 words.
I'm an enthusiast.
Okay.
Yeah, you did say
Three.
I mentioned.
As a three words. You are taking time. This is the breach of rapid fire.
Yes, I did mention that the 3 words I I, I would say I'm
I know. Let
I'm
me open
yes.
that for you. Let me open that for you. You are an enthusiast.
Yeah, that
You are
that was a
practical.
challenging one.
You are practical, and you're a charming person. Different.
Yeah.
My another question to you, sir, is tell us your favorite space movie and tell us what are the things that inspired you in that in those.
My favorite space movie. You wouldn't believe it. It's actually Transformers. Transformers is a whole lot of the issues of space and the like. I think it was one of the uh, movies that drawn me to space, seeing Optimus Prime coming from Cybertron and the like. So I just related space with a lot of technology embedded in it.
This is by far the best answer I've got to this question. Hands down, hands down. Seriously. Yes, definitely. Optimus Prime coming from Cybertron, the space legacy that the movie has brought, and the motivation that it has implanted in all of us right there in the heart to pursue space and technology is enormous. What part of the movie would you play in that in Transformers and why?
So I saw all the Transformers movies, but I wouldn't really recall the name per se. But the best moments I have is when Optimus Prime speaks. The way he conveys information, it's quite inspirational. You would just imagine being motivated by a robot, and I think when you listen to Optimus Prime, after that you just feel like you want to do something useful. So essentially, yeah, I think I'll just revert back to the areas where Optimus Prime would just say something. It's quite amazing.
The oratory skills of that man, Optimus Prime is next level. I do believe that too. If you ever got a chance, this is my another question. If you ever got a chance to settle down on another planet, which planet would it be?
Um, that's quite tricky. It's quite tricky because the only planet with life is Earth. Uh, so maybe just out of curiosity, see how Mars is going to shape up and how it's going to develop. But I wouldn't want to lie. Earth is on the top of my list.
A derivative of this question only has somewhat terrified me always because we live in such a beautiful planet with everything perfect. Comes in the Goldilocks zone. If water is pure, water is liquid, the lights are good, the temperature is perfect. There is greenery, oxygen, everything. Why do you think that we want to go set up our community at a planet like Mars and not develop our own planet that we are living on and improve it?
So for humans are quite a complex species. the need to address challenges or do something which is difficult has always been in our DNA, and I think it's something that has managed to see the evolution of human beings from one stage to the other, be it from the Stone Age in reference to the African community, or be it in terms of technology development from the Industrial Revolution of the steam engines. So I think that quest on its own is just one more challenge that we have. And through that challenge, it is important to point out that we then have some important aspects that are able to develop our nation here on Earth and improve our lives. So essentially, the settling part, I think you have so many people looking at a platform, specifically those that are aligned to space exploration, establishing humans as a multi-planetary species, which can expand our horizon as humans at the end of the day.
Like you mentioned, that yes, humans, we are a complex species. And I believe that one part to this, the question that I asked is that the complexity of us humans has made us to compete against each other. And we are now venturing into a space race. And this, because of this space race, everybody feels they feel the need of going ahead and getting ahead of everybody. And they want to move to some other planet. Now, a question that could be asked over this is that, do you think that privatization of space helps in the growth of the space community?
I think that we is space is not owned by anyone, and the privatization of space is an issue that we need to address as a community, global community. And that's where we when we explore.
That's great.
Sorry.
Your audio is breaking a little bit, so if you don't mind, you can switch off the camera. This will help improve the audio quality, which is fine. You can turn the camera off, and then we can proceed.
Oh, okay.
Last moments are left.
No, that's okay. So in terms of privatization of space, the development of space technology or space exploration is not subjected to a specific nation, or is not supposed to benefit a specific group, but we look forward to improving the livelihood of everyone here on Earth. So you would find people talking of the betterment of the human society. So privatization of space definitely is something that we should condone, and just push to have the participation of all nations that would want to embark on space exploration. And if there are any spin-offs and benefits, like the past activity that we have been done in space, they have benefited the whole globe. We talk about the global positioning systems and everything. This is a technology that is benefiting everyone at the end of the day. So that's what we wanted at the day. Having now private sectors owning the space, then becomes a challenge, mostly for developing nations, because it will then come a time where we have the muscle to venture into that area, and it's already secured by other parties. So definitely that area should be addressed amicably to ensure that everyone benefits.
I do believe it that privatization definitely grows the space sector, but it arises one big problem, because with the increasing amount of private companies and even even the public sector when going into this space sector, economy, so much capital money is invested on this technology. Therefore, do you think that sustainability can be achieved through space?
Definitely, sustainability can be achieved through space. It just depends on where the efforts are being directed to. If our efforts are being directed to improving life or to improving our communities, it definitely becomes a sustainable way. I love some of the technologies that have been introduced by some private companies like SpaceX, where they are now talking of reusable rockets and everything. This is it's reusability and sustainability at the same time. The resources that are being put into some of these vehicles are now limited, and at the end of the day, we are able to achieve what we want as humans in our expectation. So definitely, depending on the areas that would want to address, there is sustainability, and it all comes to different member states, space policies that are derived, and how they support such initiatives.
All right, Mr.
Initiatives.
I have one more question to you, and it is: how do you think that the emerging countries, how do you think that in the space industry will contribute to overall the advancement of the global space industry?
So the emerging space nations have a huge responsibility, because we are close at the challenges that we meet in our day-to-day activities. We really understand the way our communities are thriving, and from that, I believe that it is through the emerging nations, particularly Africa, that we can now have a more engagement of the community in the space sector and make it one, to ensure that it is beneficial both ways. So it's one area I feel that even as we have many students or youth embarking from the emerging nations, they have a major voice to play in ensuring that space is beneficial to everyone. Space particularly addresses the challenges that we have and improve our nations.
Certainly, that's the advancement that will be made in the global space industries. Emerging nations will definitely play a part, as you said. But but for those emerging nations, I believe that research probabilities and space education opportunities are one of the core elements that play a role in it. So, how do you think? How is it possible to enhance the research possibilities and space education opportunities in emerging nations?
So main issue or the main barrier is the issue of finance in some areas. But the most important thing that we just need to realize to ensure that we achieve this is the human capital, the human talent that we have, and making use of that human talent to push for space research and space education. Through that, it is now easy to have the international community of already established space agencies engaging with the developing nations and assisting to ensure that they also play a major role. They also contribute meaningfully to space education and space research. It is not just an issue of just embarking in space, but there is need to be to have a meaningful contribution such that we can all benefit at the end of the day.
As a last question, I have to ask you before we move on to the next section, which is the questions by the audience. It is my own personal question, and it is that imagine a situation where you have already become an astronaut or some big personality in the astrophysics department or even in the space department. Now, if the kid asks you that what is it that I should do in order to become somebody like you, so what advice will you give to that kid?
Um, the one advice I would give to that young child who is looking forward to venture into space is space is not just a dream. Space is real, and uh, you just have to continue working hard to ensure that you achieve that dream. It's not a norm here in Africa to mention I would want to be an astronaut. You would find 5-year-olds in the street talking about being an astronaut and anything, but that dream vanishes away as they grow older because of the challenges that they see in their community. But the other thing that I would just say is let your environment, or do not let your environment or your surrounding affect what you want to achieve at the end of the day. For it is possible to be able to achieve your goal if you just put in the work and go an extra mile.
Thank you, Mr. Tafadzwa. Those were definitely some words of wisdom. And the kid who is watching right now, this is your answer. Let's go to the final section, sir. And we have a few questions that the audience have asked. And the first question is, will there be a collaboration between Zimbabwe Space Agency and other developing and developed nations space agencies in the future?
Yes, definitely. There is going to be collaboration at the moment. Recently, you might have known that the Africa Space Agency was launched, and it's definitely giving a platform for Zimbabwe as well to be part and parcel of other space agencies and collaborate to improve the space sector in Africa.
All right. And here we move on to the last question. Then this is going to be the final question, the same question by the audience. The question is there a curriculum in schools in your country or for space education or any other projects that wants to establish space education as a priority?
Yes, at the moment, the National University of Science and Technology is establishing a space-related course, but primarily focusing on GIS. Then University of Zimbabwe is actually a course that it is, but in terms of having more engagement in terms of space, we have actually been playing a major role in setting up that curriculum per se, specifically in terms at the National University of Science and Technology, by collaborating with other esteemed agencies outside there and inquiring how we can come up with our own curriculum that can benefit students, that can enable them to develop. So I think that is something that is continuously being developed and at a national scale will be implemented surely in the near future.
Okay, Mr. Tafadzwa, I think that this was the end of the question round, and we have come to the end of this section today. I thank you for being a part of this. I thank you for bringing your valuable insights and the projects that you have done. Like I told you before, they certainly motivate us, me, and all of the people who are watching. And as we grow further and as we collaborate just like this, definitely there is certainly a big element of achieving our goals. And I thank you so much for joining us today. That was all.
Thank you so much for having me here as well. I really hope whatever I said did manage to have a positive impact to other young space enthusiasts that are listening, and we surely hope to add into what our institutions in our respective countries are doing in improving space in Africa.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tafadzwa. And this is going to be the end of this session today, everybody. I hope you all a very good evening, a good night, a good morning, or a good afternoon. And no matter where you are, keep pursuing your dreams, keep moving further towards your dream. As Mr. Tafadzwa said, that light only shines where there is the darkness. Thank you, everybody. You have a good night. This is your host, Vishal Gautam, signing off.